In this lecture, we'll explore the tone curve adjustment panel. Before we get started, please load image wedding007.jpg in the develop module. This photo is great for this lesson because it has several different colors contained within it. This will help us clearly identify the changes that occur when we make adjustments to the tone curve. Go ahead and expand your tone curve panel over here. Also make sure you click this button to make sure you get the full range of options relevant to the tone curve. Right now, the tone curve isn't much of a curve at all. It's actually a straight line. Somewhere along this line lies every color in the color spectrum that is present in this photo. The very bottom point of this curve would represent absolute black. The very top point of this curve would represent absolute white. Watch what happens when I hover my mouse over different parts of this curve. You can see that different segments of the curve are highlighted as we move up and down. The first segment of this curve, known as shadows, represents the darkest range of colors, including absolute black and anything close to it. The second segment represents the mid-range of colors that fall within the darker color category. We then have lights, and if I go all the way up, I have highlights, which would represent the lightest range of colors in this image. The tone curve is typically used to adjust contrast levels between different ranges of colors. To demonstrate, I'll increase the contrast between the lightest and darkest colors. So first, I'm going to put a point at the top of the curve, and I'm going to drag this curve up. So watch what happens. You can see that the lightest range of colors are now getting even lighter. Now I'll do the same for the darker range of colors, but this time I'm going to drag the curve down to make the darks even darker. Okay, now let's take a look at the before and after. You can clearly see that the lighter range of colors have become even lighter, the darks have become even darker, creating a much higher degree of contrast between the color ranges. Now if we wanted to, we could also target the mid-range of colors on the curve by placing our mouse over the middle of the curve and dragging either up or down. So you can see the mid-tones getting either darker or lighter if we move the curve up. These sliders at the bottom of the curve allow us to adjust the breadth of each color range. If we wanted to widen the scope of the highlight colors, we could drag the right slider towards the left. We can do the same for the darks by moving the leftmost slider towards the right. So you can see that the darker colors get even darker if we do that. And when we move this right slider towards the left, the lighter shades get even lighter. If you're having trouble working with the tone curve, you can always use the 4 sliders located here to adjust your contrast between lights and darks. So for example, if I want to increase the lights, instead of playing around with the curve, I just drag the light slider towards the right. And if I want to make the darks darker, I can move this slider towards the left. So remember, highlights and shadows refer to the lightest and darkest parts of your image, whereas lights and darks refer to your midtones. We can use the tone curve to target very specific colors in our image using the color select feature over here. To use this, click on it and hover your mouse over different parts of your photo. You'll notice a point move up and down on your curve, which identifies where this specific color lies on the curve. So right now I'm hovering over the lighter range. Watch what happens if I hover over a darker color. You can see the point is now lower on the curve. Once you've found the color you'd like to adjust, click and hold your left mouse button down. So I'm just going to adjust this light red color over here. So I'm going to hold my left mouse button down and I'm going to drag my mouse either up to make that color even lighter, or I'm going to drag it down to make that color darker. Now you can do this with any color in the image that you'd like to adjust the tone of. The tone curve also has built-in presets you can use if you find the manual adjustments too difficult to work with. So for example, next to point curve, there's a menu. So you can select either medium contrast or strong contrast. And this way, Lightroom will automatically make adjustments to your color ranges for you. We can use the tone curve to adjust separate RGB channels. Remember, every color in your color spectrum is composed of 3 primary colors, red, green, and blue. Each one of these colors can be separated into separate channels for adjustment. To do so, click this button here. Also, before we continue, right-click on your tone curve and just go to Flatten Curve so we can go back to the original. So this will restore the curve back to its original shape with no adjustments. You'll now see a channel selector here. Switch it from RGB to red. We can now make changes to only the reds in this image. The way this works is if you bring the tone curve up, you add more reds to your image. If you bring the tone curve down, you increase the amount of cyan, which is actually the opposite of red. It's quite evident that when we bring the tone curves down, more cyan starts to appear throughout the image. Now we can also work with the green and blue channel. All we'd have to do is switch it from this menu here. Okay, pulling the green curve up increases the greens, whereas pulling it down adds more magenta. So you're always working with opposite colors. And let's go to blues. Okay, moving the curve up adds more blues, and moving it down will add more yellows. So if you wanted to target your lighter blues, remember you're working with the top half of the tone curve. If you want to target your darker blues, you're working with the bottom half of the tone curve. And just like with any other image we've worked with, if you want to reset and start over, just press the reset button and you'll go right back to your original image. I'll undo that for just a second. And if you want to toggle between your before and after, you can do so using the toggle switch. Okay, so I'll go ahead and reset this image so we can take it back to its original. The next panel group we're going to work with is hue, saturation, and luminance. So please go ahead and click over here to expand the panel. And for this exercise, we're going to be working with image ny006.jpg. So please go ahead and bring that up in the develop module.